Once again, looking at Call of Duty Zombies. This is the long version for my top 5 reasons that people quit zombies. So if you want that quick summary, go ahead, check that video out. And if you want it even more quickly, just jump to the points where I go over each of the 5 points. But in this video, the purpose is to really dig into and specifically look at those 5 reasons, and then also comparing to other games that came out during the time of the first World at War game, as well as more recently in changes they had, and maybe some ideas for Call of Duty Zombies that they could change in the future. But doing the same thing, comparing to the original World at War maps, focusing on Nocturne and Toten compared to Cold War's D Machine, along with other games. And there you saw footage in the first video of Black Ops Arcade 3. And that's an example where there is still some passion, because they don't have to get people just to be playing the game and getting into those microtransactions. So starting off here, this is D Machine, where I'm starting in the outside. And immediate thing that hits you is the atmosphere. And by this I mean the survival aspect of the original maps. You don't have that. Why? Because you have your starting weapon. And the argument here is that, well, you can just switch over to the pistol and nerf yourself, but if you're playing with other people and playing with randoms, which is the way it's meant to be played, then that's not going to stop them from having their own weapons. Everyone's got to be doing that. And it's not how it is designed. That's another thing as well, is just because you can switch things around and customize, it doesn't change the design of the game and how it is meant to be played. So, but starting out, that's the first aspect, and then also the map design. It's too open. Even in this small area, you can technically train and run around, and with the weapons that you have, even if I had my heavy machine gun in World at War, I can't run around at this fast of a speed going around. So I got a tremendous amount of firepower right away, and I'm going to be hanging on to this light machine gun up until into the tens as a secondary weapon. So that means I don't need extra money, and it's easier to get money anyway, because you have the point system in this game. You get a higher amount, and you can also piggyback off of other zombies more easily, which you can't do as well. So that is all removed. So this combination of factors really affects the early game, and this is why it plays out similarly. You're not going to pick up random weapons off. I don't even know what the wall weapon is. I think it's maybe a shotgun. Why would I have that when I have this light machine gun here in this first area? I'm going to be hanging on to this, and then I can just run around. Since it's open, I'm not boarding up any windows. There's no point. The area is too open, and I can run around anyway. So I'm just going to be knocking out lines of zombies. It doesn't matter if people are around or not. Like here, one guy isn't playing, but okay, here's a bunch here, so I walk over there. And a lot of the times you notice even too, I could more efficiently use my ammo, but I can just do it without looking down the sights. I got hundreds of bullets here to work with, so no problem. But you wonder why you look at the more recent maps as being incredibly easy. The overtly obvious reasons. The guns, not only the guns that you start with, because in past Call of Duties, you didn't start with any weapon that you want. It's gotten to this point because it doesn't matter. The other Call of Duties had issues with the maps, with the AI, and this goes way back, and it's something that has gradually changed and has catered to getting people to care about getting to the higher rounds and getting them back playing. And to do that, it's got to be easy early on. To make it easy early on, you got to be strong enough where you're less likely to be downed. You get past to a certain point. But this means it's going to be boring and repetitive, and it's at the point of you're always going to be sitting with the same weapon. You technically could pick up another gun, but why would you when you can use it up into the teens as at least a secondary gun, and then you can even upgrade it. You can still use it later. There isn't a real thought of game design making it hard or having the survival aspect where you're all working together. Here I'm already at round 5, The rounds keep getting shorter as well, because it doesn't matter if it's early on. It would just be more boring to be doing the same thing. You could double, you could triple the amount of zombies. I got plenty of ammo, and it's not hard to knock them out. But here I'm finally at round 5. Here I'm going up until round 7 out of ammo, but I don't need as many max ammos because I have hundreds more bullets. When you really dig into, though, like there's a wall gun, like who cares? To the details, though, you see that the likelihood of it being difficult, it just never happens. And this is why with games that you play, you'll find if you know how to look down your sights, or even if you don't look down your sights, like I was just hip firing half the time, games will always go way past round 10. Whether you're downed or not, it doesn't make a difference because other people can just be off on their own. And these moments of where there just isn't a whole lot of action as you open up the map, and it isn't interesting at all either. I have the same gun. There's nothing going on. I can go to the same spot. And the same type of things are going to happen. Like, so you have this one camping spot here on the plane of the wing, but it's still this training thing because they spawn way out. I sit here a while, and it's designed so I can go off the wing. I could run around a bit and go to the same spot. But really the open part of the map, this is something they have to change. And then, I mean, until they do, make it close quarters, or change, even more importantly, how the AI affects, like maybe there's a ranged attack. They do that, but it's always lightly. You'll see different zombie types, but it'll never change how you play because they're so passive and the damage they do is so little. You're still doing the same thing, you just run around a little bit farther. Like the radioactive guy in this one, he is extremely slow for a reason, even though he's a bullet sponge. It's so the gameplay can stay the same to get people back playing again and again. Looking at Nach der Toten here now, and just listen to the first round to understand what I mean by atmosphere. So with Nach der Toten starts out very slowly. They picked up the pace in the second game. But what this does is you have the enclosed space, it's at night, and you just hear the moans and the groans of the zombies first. You don't see where they're coming from, and you have to be looking outside of your windows. This does a bunch of things. First, you understand the mechanics of, you have to first board up your windows because that's how they get in, but you have a limited amount of bullets with your pistol, so you're picking your shots and then you're running out, but then you realize, okay, if I swipe them, I can get the max amount of points there. This is the power part of the game. The AI doesn't have to be extremely difficult. Depends on your own capabilities early on. If it's too much, then it doesn't matter if the AI is more difficult, and the games are always going to be playing out the same. So there's that risk factor subtly in, and a proper amount of escalation. And while all this is going on, this is why I say it's important for this to be a co-op game. You have the other three players doing the same thing. They might try to steal kills, or they might buy a weapon off the wall. This teaches you how it plays. It teaches you what to do or what not to do, because if they just waste all their bullets, shoot all the zombies, then you don't have the points. They don't have that many points, because every shot you have to kill them in a certain way to get more points. It makes your whole group vulnerable, and since you're in that tight space, you're all working together. But all this, you have escalation. More will come in. You need to get enough points. Do you decide to get a wall weapon, or do I open the door and only get one shot at the box? There's also submachine gun, the Thompson, in the other room, but that costs a little bit more, so I'm using that. It's not only in the gameplay itself, it's also the economic system, how that works with how you get points and then how you're going to spend them. Because of this, the games aren't going to play out exactly the same way. And there's even a little bit of experimentation. In that first room, you might just use your pistol the whole time and throw grenades, not mess with it. Or you might try the bolt action that's cheaper, or the semi-auto rifle that's a little more expensive, but you're thinking, okay, they're not going to go in the next room for a while. But here, I'm risking it. I'm going into the next room, and I'm getting my first weapon. But I'm doing it so they can get theirs, and then I'll throw grenades. I need that 950 to get that gun. And there's the risk. That's why, like with Der Rise, you can run through it, and if you get the dogs come, and then you get a bad weapon, which is what happened to me, then you can get downed early quite easily. But here, I can finally get my first weapon. I got my 950. And you get unlucky. I got a Car 98. Okay, this brings me to demachine, the weapons people talk about. Well, you can use any weapon, you can upgrade all of them. It doesn't mean you're going to be using them. You already had this with the World at War maps, because with the mystery box, you pick up whatever you're going to get, especially in the first two games before the Pack-a-Punch machine. Pack-a-Punk. You couldn't upgrade the weapons, so you didn't get certain weapons because you wanted to upgrade those certain weapons. And it actually sort of works in reverse with D-Machine, that you have a particular weapon that you want, you have more points because you have that strong starting weapon, and you can just choose to wait until you get the weapon that you want while ignoring all the other ones. So when that is mentioned, you got to kind of roll your eyes a little bit. Like, I'm not going to be using them into the higher rounds, but it's those first rounds are what's important. What am I going to be using? And the reality is you're much more likely to use a wider variety of weapons in these maps than in D-Machine, because you have to, not just out of player choice. So now here I'm making it work with my pistol. I got a max ammo. I still got my bolt action. But you see just how long it takes. And I'm just showing, like with D-Machine, the first 6 rounds before round 7. And at round 4, I still have a bolt action Car 98K, because I was unlucky, and the pistol. And I'm just making that work. But like, well, my teammates, they might have their own weapons. And I'm still dealing with, I need to get the max amount of points. So if they steal my kills, I can be stuck with these 2 guns. Aiming down the sights, it's also the World War II weapons, though. There is that natural greater variety, because you have the bolt action, you have there's more difference between the weapons, and they have slightly their own shortcomings. Like, even though the heavy machine gun especially is a lot stronger, your mobility is reduced. This is something that hasn't been changed either. You notice I was running around because I had an LMG with in D-Machine. Aiming down the sights, though, it's a little bit slower. You see a lot of that stupid aim in, aim out thing on a lot of zombies games. Like, I can't, once you really dig in, there's just so many things, like small and large, that affect how strong the player is, that makes it that games are going to play out the same way and easier, and you're just boringly going through the rounds. Trying my hand again. Here I get the Garand. One Garand. Now I got my semi-auto rifle. Again, though, this is just a random game that I am playing. You see the variety of weapons I get. I got a pistol, my Car 98K, and then M1 Garand already. And this is only by round 4. And I still have a secondary, you still have that secondary weapon you're going to keep, even if you do get like the heavy machine gun or the ray gun. You have that secondary weapon that you're using, more likely going to be using, because you need every bullet in World at War, where you don't in D-Machine. It's not only you have a lot more, you have ammo pickups, you're firing out in the open early on, so you're getting those, the overall game design. But really the weapons, it's trickier with the modern weapons, because a lot of them feel the same. It's all a bunch of assault rifles. You don't have that mix of like the submachine guns that individually have their own feel more the rifles, the bolt action, semi-auto, even between the snipers. And quickly here too, the direction that a lot of the videos have gone, they've made it easier for people to YouTube the COD zombies with the assumption that you're playing solo or sometimes with two people. And this changes the maps broadly, especially with this first one. It's seen as an easy map because solo, if you get the flamethrower, you can run around the pillar. You're not able to do this. It's actually a detriment if you're playing 3 or 4 people because it blocks their field of vision. And you have 24 zombies at a time, not in a round. So you get overwhelmed trying to do that, and then your other teammates obviously can't run around with you. But even if you were individually doing it by yourself while they were sitting up in the camping spot, you would still get overwhelmed. So it's something to keep in mind when you're looking at a lot of the videos. The remakes even too distorts this further, that you get the extra stuff, the extra items that you don't have that in World at War. You gotta make do with every gun, and that's why you're going to be remembering every gun that you use, because you go in the mystery box, you're not going to get the powerful MG right away. Now I finally get it though, and I'm at round 5, so I'm swapping out my Car 98K bolt action. But you see, I still have my secondary, my M1 Garand. I'm still using these 2 weapons because there's more likely the issue if I run out of ammo, I want to switch over to the Browning here. But really the character though, the difference between the weapons themselves, like you don't have the bloat going all around, but there's more care taken into, like you see the clip in the bottom right, the sights looking down, and the kickback, aiming down the sights. A lot of these things don't matter. Like I was firing by the hip with my LMG, rarely looking down the sights, and you can, and it's easier to because it snaps much more quickly, but there isn't really a choice of, okay, do I want more accuracy, take my shots more carefully, or am I just, like accuracy to even 2, there's less of that kickback thing. Round 6 now, but my point is, you see the variety though, even though it starts out very slow in the beginning, in those first 6 rounds, and the amount of time it takes is quite a bit longer. I'm looking at the D machine, it didn't even reach 6 minutes. Here I'm over 12, so it's over twice the amount of time to get to the same round. And it's not because it's easier with this one and they have it that way, but there's proper escalation where it makes sense to have them gradually come in, take your time in those early rounds because you want to get the amount of points, and then actually use the weapons that you're picking up off the wall or you're picking up in the mystery box because it's harder to get them. It's not as easy to get the number of points like you can in D machine. So it's more complicated deceptively than you think, and it's easy to chalk it up to, well, it's just easier, that's why the rounds are slower. It's actually because they try to make it harder and really emphasize the survival aspect. But besides just combat, it's also how you get your money and how you're able to spend it, and then just the obstructions and what everyone else does, because we're all in the same area. But here, last round, round 6, and I'm getting yet another gun. So how many is that? I got the pistol, the bolt action, the Garand, the Browning, and now the Magnum. That's 5. And I didn't even use a wall gun. I didn't do a wall gun pickup, so 5 guns already by round 6. Like in contrast, D machine, I had that one LMG over several games, and I'm going up to, round 10, sometimes round 12. And I do hit the mystery box, but I don't have to. The most you're looking at is 2 guns. So one just different gun. Besides that, you're in these close quarters, so you hear what everybody else is using at the same time. And what they do also has an impact. They leave a window open, then you got to deal with it, or you all have to deal with it. So much more immersively going on. And just to show you, this was my starting gun. This is before I had the 75 round LMG. This one had even more, 90 rounds. So you can go rounds while reloading once. I can go up to round 4 or 5, and I reloaded the LMG one time, just recklessly firing around. But you're constantly reminded. I'm firing it off. Oh, I got an award. Now I can upgrade this, upgrade that, to distract from how boring it is to use the same gun over and over. And the argument is, well, that's your preference. You can do what you want. You got to be forced to for it to have an impact. Just using something just to check it out, see what it does. It doesn't do a whole lot. Looking a little bit farther in, Nocturne and Toten again, round 12 now. I still have the Browning and the Magnum. And so, I mean, the rules apply the same way. If I don't need to get another weapon till later, and here I don't, because I have my machine gun and I have my Magnum, I might as well use them, get some points. I'm not going to do it. It's the same type of rules. Zombies also, it's not a matter of they're more difficult. It's the limitations and just how the currency system works in like how games are going to play out. But you see, I'm still with my group. It's a small map, and just the contrast of trying to run around, you can't. It's not that the zombies are any harder, it's just that you can't run around mindlessly. But here's the example of trying to train. I showed my other video of the whole group just comes down on you, and I tried to run up there to get to my camping spot. Couldn't get there in time. So I get downed, and a lot of players, you know, they're used to more recent zombies, so they're used to just running around in an area, and this is like the hardest map it is to do that. You have, even if you open everything up, with 4 players, you have longer rounds, more zombies, and you can quickly run out of ammo, even if you successfully do it for a while. And even with upgrades, insta-kill here. And he just missed reviving me, but you got a couple people here running around, but they still know to keep that spot closed off because they want to get to that camping spot. But still, you know, running around. This is only round 12 with a full group relatively working together, not well, you know, running around, and you're still dealing with that escalation, and you don't have it. This is kind of what you missed, that slow first round, remember, where you have your pistol, taking your time, and you hear everything. This is contrasted with just getting overwhelmed later on, and you have your other teammates. If they, you know, all they had to do was go to the camping spot in the top, and they would still have to work together because you have, you know, a group of 4, so you have extra zombies fighting against you at the same time. And you know, going back to, this is why the solo, looking at it that way is complete nonsense, because it completely changes how you play. You can't run around a pillar with a flame floor. You got to deal with reviving people. People are down, and then you don't do that, then they start over. There's no, you're not going to jump back in and have that LMG when you come back, even if they survive. So you got to help them get that mystery box. And you got a limited amount of time. You got to get a crawler. You know, these small things can have a huge impact. Looking back at D Machine, I'm even a round higher, round 13, and look what I got. I got my same gun, and I got, you know, luckily got a insta-kill, but I mean, there's other footage of me around 14 without it, with a even larger group. So, I mean, very easy. Then what happens is, once you get it, then you have a lull in the combat where you can reload, you can get your ammo, and you have extra health. Here, though, then the following round 14, you see I have my other gun. I got the mystery box. Nothing upgraded, though, yet. No Pack-a-Punch. And with my starting gun, all I got is Juggernaut. I was able to reload and sprint, and since they're weak enough, not fast enough, able to mow them down. You know, out in the open, you get your like bomb or insta-kill. That's it. And again, I'm by myself for several rounds, so, and you can do it, and it's repetitive. You're doing the same thing. Here are the Plague Hounds, though. My rocket launcher, no Juggernaut or anything. I can see my health bar, of course, and everybody else's. But you see how easy it is to dispatch them. They have to hit you so many times. This is already at round 8, where I'm not even using my LMG, and then I get it, and I get the max ammo. I don't even have to reload here. And the amount of just points that you need, it's too easy. In contrast with Der Rise, I took a risk of just getting the box, and I just got monkeys, so I got no weapon. But we're all working together still, and it is still possible, even as early as round 5. If you played it back in the day, you remember getting down, you know, down to game design once again. Once more, the Plague Hounds in a later round. Here I have the Pack-a-Punch. I'm round 15, but my melee weapon isn't, that I'm able to use at the same time. But the important part is that openness of the map. By myself, it should be a lot more difficult. I could get surrounded. There isn't anybody help me. You know, there's several. plague hounds right there. And it is just very unlikely to get down. Even another person is downed here, so there's more attacking just me. But you see the difference in terms of difficulty, the aggressiveness. And this is, 30 games, or 30 maps later. Shi no Numa here, and I have the strongest weapons, like I have with all this other footage, the Wunderwaffen that can take out several Hellhounds at the same time. But one little mistake, even though I have the upgrade perks and everything, or two, a couple shots, and then that's it. But again, even though we're together, you still have that challenge at all times, and it forces you to work together. AI, specifically what I'm talking about, this is the second map for Eric, the sprinting zombie. Some things that they could do to make it more difficult, more engaging, force you to get different weapons besides that, starting with an LMG, is the zombies themselves, not nerfing them. I mean, this is early on. This is the second map of the first game, and you had that challenge right away, dealing with World War II era weapons that made it much more difficult. But they nerfed this as soon as the map that came right after, Shi no Numa, where no more sprinting zombies, and then they added the dogs, which were aggressive, but you didn't have like occurrences like this that they could sprint, so you had to be on your toes a bit. Less of like the fast crawlers too, just less aggressive has been the trend. Once again, round 15, and here I have a pickup weapon, but I'm just sitting at the spot the whole game and, really testing out to see if I can get away with it. And you can. And, again, a weapon I picked up, and then after that I have my starting weapon. But you see how big the map is. And it's not for game design to make interesting encounters. It's just to keep interest of, well, this is a big map, it's in this area, let's do this. And with the big difference with World at War maps is it's designed for, you got to stick together, you got to camp. Like here's a guy that ran off that's in the bottom, he goes down. And even when you work together, it's not guaranteed. It depends how you do it. You can still run out of ammo. And but you always see the old tactics though. When I go to these games, they try the clear, cover room thing if it's a hard spot to run around in a circle. But the same stuff happens. They get downed, and then you're too far away to help them, and then like with this game I was left alone because they were far off running around, and then you can't go to revive them. And even for me, I got the insta-kill again, like with the other clip and knocked there in Toten, and I have a trap. This is the second map, but there's a proper balance of not making it too easy. The trap has to recharge, it runs out of power, and I still have that one spot I got to deal with where they come in through the window. Here, just two-player, and this is an example of using the camping spot, and he's downed, even though he's sitting with me, and I need to pick him up in order not to lose, because I don't have enough time to reload my Browning, so he got to switch. He's got to fire his ray gun, and he can fortunately do it while he's down. That challenge is always there. I haven't had a single moment like this. I get knocked down while I'm running around, and that's it. And that's why, like with the earlier maps, they focused on that challenge of, okay, well, let's split you up. We have to get the power to go together, because that's where you're stronger. You're much more vulnerable with your bolt action weapon when you are alone. This is this third map in World at War, Shi no Numa, where I believe it started going wrong because of the zombie AI, but you still have like things like the swamp that slow you down, where you have to go to each station and get these randomized perks, and they still have the traps, but even with that, you're dealing with boarding up the windows on the side. So it still creates some variety. It's not like this map is bad in and of itself, just the stuff they started to take away that increased as you get later on in the game. But there still is that tension early on that you need to be sticking together more, even though you have the mobility factor. It just gradually, each game, it's less and less. And here with Durais, you have that area you can run around in, but there still is a proper camping spot here. This time you can just easily run out of. Sometimes you have to do that. But you see the gradual sort of de-evolution, but while adding some good things, the bad stuff there too. Looking at a later round now in D Machine, once again, I got my Pack-a-Punch. And look where I'm at. I'm sitting on that wing And this is like after the third door, I'm already at to this spot, and I got plenty of points. But there just isn't the variety. I'm going to be sitting here, going to be firing, and I can get away with it. And then when I get too close, I can just run around. And then all the additions, like there was the brain one where they're on my team if I hit them, just takes away any of the tension and makes it boring. And you have that even early on with the first tiny little map in Noctair and Toten. Of someone will get downed, or they'll leave a window for a while, a bunch will go in, then you'll all be running in with different weapons firing, looking front, looking back, and sometimes you get down, sometimes you get lucky, like just stuff happens all the time like that. And in place, you have all these leveling up upgrades after completing a match in D Machine. You find out what ether you get, so you can upgrade this even though you're already overpowered when you jump in. And it's not just Call of Duty Zombies that does this, and it gets worse. You see this bloat thing in a lot of other games. It's kind of a matter of how it impacts the game in terms of resources in affecting it, even though you don't need it, this is another example of it. They're putting time and energy into that, and like cutscenes and story, that it doesn't matter. It's it's a nonsensical story but since people have been playing it so long, the focus and, like I say, the direction has been going in the wrong places rather than survival mechanics. How do we change up the maps, the zombies, not making the player overpowered? And it's apparent right when you load up the game. I'm going into find match, and I have the same lobbies. I can play the campaign, I can play the zombies mode, changing the difficulty, and then you just jump in. There's no upgrade system, and the funny thing is, even the leveling, it shows the leveling going up, but it doesn't. It just stays at the same level, since you can't upgrade, level up your character by playing zombies. The funny thing is, within Call of Duty Cold War, there's an example of a game that builds upon the previous concept and emphasizes 4-player co-op, and that's Black Ops Arcade 3. Like the additions that they added here after the technical stuff was fixed, since the game released in a very rough state and there was like lag glitches. There isn't any of that now, and I'm playing on an OG Xbox One. But here's an example of a game that emphasizes 4-player co-op and builds upon the previous games. You don't have these separate side modes over the years, and even though it is extreme, a basic arcadey type of game mode, there are meaningful improvements still. Like it's still the same principle of, okay, now you can go everywhere on the map, for instance, like you can with the core zombies mode, but that doesn't mean that you're going to do it because you're weaker. You need your other teammates because you're not this overpowered character that is just trying to grind through to get to a higher level, so you can upgrade your perks or your field upgrades, all that stuff, or you just want to upgrade in general, or your goal is to get to this high round sort of a thing. The interest is just to get as far as you can and getting through each of the levels. And it's also not something you're going to be playing by yourself. It'd be extremely boring. You just have less going on screen, and there's that kind of awareness because you're seeing it all at once. It's harder, and when you go with your group, you have an easier time, and then there's a lot more going on rather than just dying alone. But it has to revolve around the game design to emphasize the 4-player co-op and to have enough challenge rather than just making this kind of MMORPG or something that's too easy. And there's examples of this in recent years, and also games that are kind of loosely like COD Zombies. Here you're seeing Left 4 Dead 1. This came out the same year as Call of Duty World at War back in 2008, and I have a bot right now playing as my character because I'm out taking a piss or something. But simple things like this, game design, and I'm glad they added this in Black Ops 4. So some of this stuff may creep its way in, but what it does is allow the game to keep going. You can go back, and then it forces the developers to have good, proper design for the AI bots to function. This is something that improves with each game. It's those additions, those improvements that actually help the game. But the combat of Left 4 Dead, how it keeps the team together, is you have different sequences. Sometimes you're going to be camping because you have a horde approaching, so running around you'll just get overwhelmed. And then to discourage people running off, you have special infected that when they're running too far off, they can get grappled like by a hunter here, or it could be a smoker that grabs right after. And even if you're close together, it constantly breaks up the group, and even players that are better that try to run through, they can often get caught, and It's a similar thing to the old COD map. So these are, some things that they could add to make it more interesting, really limiting the player or changing the behavior of the zombies. Here, remember grief mode from Black Ops 2, but with Left 4 Dead, what they do is they have a design where special infected, different kind, can traverse different areas. You see the yellow kind of pathway going up and going around. But a lot of this, they threw out. They had a grief mode, and then you never saw that one again. They really need to add more stuff. Also, tweaks to the mechanics. This is Killing Floor 2. How they do it with this is you have weight. So, if you upgrade a weapon, it adds more weight, and there is a weight maximum, along with 6 players that you have. I don't know why it's still the same 4 from the original game had the 4 players. And then making the combat interesting, there's things like with the slow motion, the different classes, and then to avoid having them overpowered, even though there is an upgrade system, you can choose the difficulty, but even if you have an upgraded character, there still is that benefit. Like if you have a demolitionist, you can get grenades from him, or support, you can get ammo. So there is that 4-player co-op function. But the weight thing is something they could do where your character is slower if you have a more powerful gun. There are a lot of options really to increase the difficulty and also make it more interesting. Here's an example of the slow motion that is triggered every now and then. It gives you some time to fire. And then the upgrade path, I'm not a huge fan of. It encourages grinding, but at least with this, you can choose which one you have. You can adjust the difficulty, and it doesn't break the game because you're still useful for your class, like for getting grenades or doing area effect weapons, that kind of thing. The other 2 big games that had a horde mode in the late 2000s, you had Gears of War, you're seeing here, and Halo. Gears of War, though, is an example similar to COD Zombies that has a lot of the same problems with the currency system, the bloat, the grinding, and the upgrading. The AI, it also has in common being very bad, where it's trying to make it this action thing. There's you can get down very easily. Your character isn't overpowered. The AI is really dumb. In place, though, of the overpowered character, you have the fortifications. There's a huge emphasis on that, and that emphasizes the currency, and the bloat they have to pick up and run around. And a good comparison for this would be playing Gears of War 2, where you didn't have any of this. It's purely down to skill, camping, working together, while trying to get the pickups when they come up, disadvantages, advantages based on like the area that you're at. So it's not just COD Zombies that is doing it. Other games, they do the upgrade, the powers, the extra crap, the bloat, and the AI is what suffers as often the same or worse. And the map design here too, the maps themselves, the cover system is fine, but there isn't anything meaningful for the pickups because that's in place. You have the fortification. So this game too, I checked out a bit just for a mode of comparison, and people leave all the time. At least it has bots, but similar kind of a thing. The difficulty and the simplicity of it really has to be emphasized, and if it's complex, it's something you escalate to, like with COD Zombies, starting with a weapon, getting a stronger one, limitations. Gears of War has this card system, though. Looks familiar? Where you can upgrade your character, different things have different types of effects, and then with each card, you can further upgrade that after you get so many points, and then your character itself upgrades. And a very similar thing with the menu system. When you jump in, it's not simple like with COD World at War. After the game, you get your points, you get cards, skills, bonuses, Tour of Duty, all these things one after another. You're able to skip through it, but you just see the amount of bloat, and then once you leave the reward screen, going back to the main screen, they have a difficulty at least, but with that, in the bottom left there, you get certain rare cards, and you want those cards, in place of getting to the high rounds to get like more ether, you have the difficulty where you're going to be grinding and playing just to get the dumb cards to upgrade your character, not thinking about if you're having fun doing it. And this was, possibly even worse. People would drop out. I'd see the AI teammates afterward because it just gets so boring. There's an emphasis again on the AI. Now with Halo, it's not in either category. It's a little bit different. Like they had a horde survival game too, but here's an example of where change works and is justified based on the game mechanics. It's not the same. Not everything works. Like for COD Zombies, there's so many games that came out over the years, and the zombies function in essentially the same way. But with Halo, they changed the character so much, and in particular in how strong they are, but really in like mobility and the weapons, the items that you use. You can do like the ground pound, the boost, and the just how fast paced it is. Like you go to from one COD zombie to the other, it maybe moves more quickly, but like with the sprint mechanics and the mobility factor, vertical, horizontal. This is a case of where it makes sense to go the direction rather than being the survival game like with Halo Reach, because it's so fast paced. If the enemies were the same, it would be too easy. So what they've done with this is making it an more open map, and changing the AI also though too to mix it up. You're not going to be fighting the same enemies all the time. They're going to change where they spawn. Like here, I'm going into one of the bases. You have to take out different locations, and there's this crevice kind of off on the right, so they put sniper jackals there. And you're not going to have this in every game. Like I might have a different map, I might have a different setup with where the AI are. And also improvements, like you have 8 players now instead of the standard 4. Again, like with Killing Floor, there's why not increase the number of players and really think about game design, how it's going to play out, making the challenge not too easy and more like hard enough, bare minimum. So you have to react so it's not the same thing every single time. But like with this one, you couldn't do the same thing. If they tried to make it a survival game and had the vehicles and all that, it could eventually be like a bit too easy. So instead there's a timer, and you have a limited amount of time to take all the enemies out. You can increase the difficulty where they're stronger, but it's that time limit where when that runs out, then you're done. You can see here, though, the amount of variety and just those rules going back to how strong is the player, how is the map designed, the strength of the enemies, the atmosphere, the amount of bloat that there is. It's not grossly unbalanced. The only thing I don't like with Halo 5 is they do have the upgrades that you get, but that you get naturally for playing the game, where you get like vehicles or certain weapons. It's pain. Again, this dumb card system that you have to run through. But nails all of these aspects. There's an atmosphere, like the space war thing. You're in this grand battle, and proper escalation. You start off with just being the Spartan. You have your weapons. You can get stronger weapons as you get to more rounds. You have rec points to get more. You get the smaller vehicles first. Here I have the Warthog, and then the enemies escalate too. Though you're not gonna just be fighting elites and grunts the whole game. You're gonna get into the larger Covenant vehicles, or like the other factions that are also into it, and then the co-op part too. Even though it is extremely open, the battles where the enemies are sprinkled around, they're not just charging you. You still have people working together to take them down, even in vehicles. They might be in like a Ghost, a Warthog, and then later on you'll have the flying vehicles, the heavy vehicles, but you want to be taking turns. It's just like with how it is designed, there's the single point you have to go to, and then you're all blasting away. And even then, it's more interesting because you have different types of vehicles, different weapons. You can decide what you want. There's a limitation based on the rec points that you have by killing so many enemies or accumulating it in game. You're not just overtly strong because you've grinded for hundreds of hours playing the one map. So you have all these ether crystals that you're applying to your starting weapon, your field upgrades, your perks, where it's unbalanced, that kind of thing. So it does, not every game is going to be the same. It does depend on the game mechanics. Like if they change radically, then it's not going to work. But like with COD Zombies, it's been the same for years, and similar issues with multiplayer. And those kind of extend. I think people like to separate the two, but the problems with multiplayer extend to COD Zombies, and getting people to want to play it. That's why there's this upgrade system. It's creeped its way in there. This has been since like Black Ops 3, where they had that system, a little grinding there with the gobble gums thing. And then later on with Elixir, then like it just kind of de-evolved from there, the different game modes that you have. And like that's why today you're at with COD Cold War, the problem, besides all the upgrades, the grinding that you have, it's to the point of, well, I might as well just have a powerful starting weapon, since that is the point of playing the game, is to getting to those high levels, because you want to get those ether crystals to upgrade your guy. And if you don't care about that, you're just going to jump in and check out the map, see what maybe the Easter egg is, play for a bit until you're bored, and then pick up the next year's Call of Duty and kind of go through the same cycle. I'm not just criticizing COD Zombies without giving some solutions that I believe would make the game a compelling survival experience again. Even though my top reason is the zombie AI being bad, like in its behavior or how it acts, I don't think that's the first step. It's the bloat and how it affects the game. Here, I'm talking about the upgrade system with the perks, with the weapons, the weapon that you start with, and just the focus on getting to a high round and the achievements. You know, there's a lot here, and this is a problem with a lot of games that, depending on the genre that it's in. Like if you have an RPG, this makes more sense as that's part of the progression system. But with a survival game where the only goal is to survive as long as possible, you want to make that challenging and the gameplay and the cooperative part the point. So removing this, then there is the clarity to be working on the other areas, because it suddenly becomes boring that the only point is to survive. And that's why all the early games are a lot more fun. It's just to survive. You can run out of bullets. If you run off and do your own thing, you got to use what you got. After that's removed, the next would be working backwards, starting with enemy AI. And I would start there instead of map design or player character, because that has the largest impact. If you limit it to map design, then you got to go back to the original and have these enclosed maps. You got to remember the AI hasn't really improved, and the reason it was more difficult in the first game, beyond like the sprinting zombie and stuff that they added a little bit, was because the enemy AI was so weak and just kind of ran towards you, and that's about it. There wasn't anything beyond that, and it worked because you had these enclosed maps. So by doing the enemy AI first, then you have more possibility and more variety with the type of maps that you have. It might be okay, depending on how it is, to have a larger map. And same thing goes with the player character. If the enemy AI is strong enough or diverse enough, then the player can be stronger. You don't have to necessarily cut out everything there that you had before. So simple things to do with the zombie AI is I'd bring back the sprinter, because then even in open maps, to punish the player for just running in a circle, you could have a sprinting zombie, and then on top of that they could tackle you. You know, very basic, very simple, and then they just more likely spawn if you're in the more open areas to add that challenge. But the sky's the limit really here. There's subtle things like with behavior. You might have certain weapons have different effects to different types of zombies. Maybe one falls over and trips, and then a group falls over. But mixing up the speed in general, rather than having this half jog sort of a thing, you could like have more sprint, or maybe some can climb onto walls like on the sides. And the issue is with what they have added, it hasn't changed the formula up. You can always just run around in a circle, because you can't be like incapacitated like in Left 4 Dead, or you don't have to deal with super strong like zombies or ones that close the distance too fast where you can't get away because you have all this infinite stamina. So the first thing is working that way, deciding the type of zombies that you're going to have. And if you're going to go ranged, don't do like the stupid boss that is extremely slow, like in D Machine, that throws bolts, but you can just run away and go to the next open area. Like have something mixed in there would be better, or at least more of a threat where you have to change your play style. You can't just run around in a circle. After that, then you get to map design. And this depends on enemy eye, of course, but simple thing here, if there's limitations there, is take out all these stupid open areas that you have in the map that encourage single player type of gameplay and rather than 4-player co-op. Like again, going back to the early maps, the reason you had to stick together is you had these enclosed areas and you didn't have space to run around, basically. Like in even Rise, you can kind of run around that main area where the mystery box spawns in, but other than that, you gotta use the teleporters and go in a circle constantly, which is possible. I mean, I used to do that, and that's why I think like that's a problem too, but it's nothing like today, like with D Machine, where you can just go around in this large open area, and I have a camping spot, and I can jump off and just continue the cycle over and over. Or if I'm in a different area too, like there's training spots all over the place, and making it interesting, not just I mean, in a like, oh, you have one floor, then you're going to the next floor thing. You could do some verticality, mixing the enemy AI there. A lot you can really do. And then lastly, you have the player character, how strong they are, weapons. There's like the obvious thing, don't start with a light machine gun in the beginning. It makes it extremely repetitive, but this would happen automatically. If you remove the bloat, it would be just so boring that it's apparent you're doing the same thing over and over, I think. But here, the limitation is very important, and not just in your starting weapon, but when you aim down the sights, it's not too quick. How long you can run, your stamina can run out. You could do a weight thing with it, that you're slower when you have the heavier guns, and the guns themselves on top of it. Right now, again, thanks to the open maps and the AI, you're running around in a circle. You can quickly aim down your sights. It makes it extremely repetitive. Maybe have weapons that have different types of benefits, like a heavy, like light machine gun. You can maybe deploy somewhere in a stationary location that you can have down low, and then someone can shoot over you. Or something like with a sniper rifle, you could have certain things like that, or different fire modes. You could have a secondary fire mode. I think like Killing Floor 2 does this, that has a secondary type of fire mode, and then mix that in with the weight, or even have co-op weapons. You could, at a certain location, going back to the maybe a heavy machine gun, and you deploy it, and then if you have someone close to you, you're able to like automatically belt feed it, or like do certain things like that. There needs to be more creativity and emphasis on the co-op aspect. I'm not looking at, okay, just let's redo World at War maps, remaster it, make it exactly the same. There's room to grow from there. It's just building upon what they already had, adding more, but then as example with the weapon, you're stuck in a single location. It takes time to undeploy or to pack up everything. As this is just one basic example. It can get much more complicated than this. There's got to be pros and cons that encourage players to work together in a certain place, or at least mix up the gameplay where it's not the most basic. With training around the map, you have to mix things up, maybe based on the type of zombies that you're attacking on certain rounds, or the makeup of them, where it makes sense. Okay, now you got to run off because there's so many, or there's like the number is too high of too many at once, where you got to hold your ground and fight. These kind of a thing. So, but let me know in the comments below what you think of COD Zombies in terms do you like it? What do you like about it? Is it kind of those reasons I mentioned, or are you the type that you play every year for a bit, get sick of it, or other reasons you don't like it or like it, that kind of a thing? And also, if you play other games, things that you like about those, and certain stuff that could work or could not work in COD Zombies. The games I mentioned, there are elements of there that could work, but like I said, it depends on, from my other video, those 5 reasons and the order that they do it, what can be used in it. Because everything, every system affects everything else. You can't just throw one thing in and throw another. And you know, that really is part of the reason that you have the way that it is. It gets complicated to a point, and if people are playing it regardless, like if they're like at first they're just rolling over from multiplayer to playing zombies, that's how it started. And with multiplayer was the prestige. You'd prestige, and you'd maybe get like a skin, that kind of stuff. And like gradually, that has bled over into the zombies mode, where it feels like an online multiplayer. With the stuff that they add, it doesn't even have a purpose. There's like a radar scan in the map, so that kind of stuff over into the game. But anyway, let me know in the comments below if you like this video. Please give a like. If you really liked it, consider subscribing, and I'll put a link for Gamefly below. You know, like I said in my review, this is an excellent game to rent because I like the campaign. I enjoyed. Even like the zombies mode, it's fun to check out the map and to see the old Nocturne Toten bunker, and you're outside that. The Dead Ops arcade's great. Multiplayer, play a little bit, so you can kind of see what they do as it usually is. Best part, apart from Dead Ops Arcade 3, I found to be the campaign because of the different choices you can make and just playing it through, and then everything else has a shelf life. And I will see you next time.